a fascinating conversation right around this time, right?
Oh, yeah, because it's time for a chat with Pat.
Yes, and today we have with us Katy Faust. Katy's the founder and president of the children's rights nonprofit group called Them Before Us. And Katy wrote a great article in First Things called The Parental Rights Paradox. Welcome to the show, Katy.
Thanks so much for having me, you guys. It's always a joy to chat with you.
Oh, and this was a wonderful article in First Things. You do such a nice job because obviously the parent-child relationship is at the heart of this whole article. And you talk about the Supreme Court's decision, I think it was Mirabella versus Bonta, if I'm not, and it reinforced the constitutional law concerning parent-child relationship. And then you mentioned three cases where this in the past that states recognizes and protects this parent-child bond that already exists. But then you go on to talk about the paradox in American family law. So can you kind of explain how, I mean, the Supreme Court seems to be reinforcing this, but we have evidently family law that's kind of erasing this relationship between parent-child. Can you give us some insight into that, Katy?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The pre-political importance of the natural parent-child relationship is something that has been recognized in our common law going back centuries and then regularly revisited and validated by the Supreme Court. And we've seen that a lot in the last couple of years, especially with the interference between the parent-child relationship taking place through the schools, right, in terms of wanting to force children to undergo different curriculums or activities that directly violate the parents' express wishes for their children's education. And we see the Supreme Court upholding the parents' right to direct their children's upbringing. And so here we have this acknowledgement from the government that there should not be state interference between parent and child on matters like which classes they can take or not being able to keep a child's gender identity secret from their parents. Right. Fantastic. All of us look at that and go, great. Yeah. And yet, at the very same time, we are having a whole other movement take place in the marriage and family law realm, which is that the government can actually substitute who is and is not a parent at the moment of conception and validated after birth in the name of equality when it comes to assigning parents to a child that are LGBTQ. And this is a direct downstream of the Obergefell decision that said that gay marriage was needed to be nationally recognized. There could be no distinctions between same-sex and opposite-sex couples. That forced the law to accomplish what biology prohibits, which is making two adults of the same-sex parents of a child. That means the government is now assigning unrelated adults to parent children and take them home from the hospital. So here's the paradox. Either the parent-child relationship is so important that the school cannot interfere by forcing the child to attend a certain class, or it's so negligible that the government can literally just assign another adult to do the job. So at some point, the government's going to have to choose.
Yeah. Well, Katy, can you explain to our audience how what you're talking about here, assigning parents, is different when we talk about, isn't that what the government does in adoption? Don't they assign parents?
That is, so there is a natural recognition that if you give birth to a child, that child belongs to you.
Right.
And then there are exceptions to that, where if for some reason the parents can't or won't parent the child that is the natural offspring, then the government will get involved. Okay. But how does the government get involved? It gets involved by, number one, determining that there's a legitimate reason to dissolve the parent-child relationship. Anybody that's adopted a child, especially from foster care, knows that it's actually very hard to detach a child from their biological parents. It's not an automatic recognition.
Right.
And then it's also difficult to reattach them to biological strangers. And that is with good cause, because unrelated adults typically increase risks of abuse and neglect, whereas biological parents are statistically the most connected to, invested in, and protective of them. So what we have in the world of adoption and foster care is a rescue mission, a recognition that these children need to have something supplemented or replaced that they lost. And the government's not casual about that. They're not assigning parents. They are vetting. They are screening. They are background check. They're fingerprinting adults who might take these children home. That's not what's happening in the world of big fertility and the downstream effects of redefining parenthood because of Obergefell. This is simply, I have ordered this child. I have assembled sperm, egg, and womb. I'm not genetically related, but in the name of non-discrimination, the government will assign me parentage of this baby, and I can walk out of the hospital without anybody knowing who I am and where they're going.
Yeah, and you talk about that parenthood by intention, right? So if I want this,
this
is what I get. So, Katy, how do you think, are we on a collision course between what the Supreme Court has said constitutionally and what family law is doing? Is something going to bring these two in direct conflict with each other?
I will. I'm going to bring them in contact with each other. That's exactly the point that we are seeking to address in my national coalition to overturn gay marriage, because that is what is at the heart of the impact of gay marriage. And so you can go to greaterthancampaign.com. I have about 100 organizations, 50 of which are represented on the website, that are working together to retake marriage on behalf of children because of the terrible downstream effects in family law that render children as functional accessories. Mm-hmm. So the Supreme Court, in decisions like Mirabelli, are getting it right. Mm-hmm. We want the parent to stay away. We want the government to stay away from the parent-child relationship.
Right.
We want that natural, privileged connection to remain out of touch for the government. We don't want them assigning children to unrelated adults. So that is the tension. And it's not the parental rights rulings that need to change. It is the family law that needs to change. And that's what we're trying to do at the Greater Than campaign.
Okay. So what do you see anything happening short of overturning Obergefell?
Well, these two things are on a collision course, and one of them is going to win.
Okay.
And so they cannot coexist. There's a schizophrenia in the law that's going to have to resolve at some point. It cannot resolve on the side of biological bonds between parent and child are unimportant. It cannot land there. Yeah. It has to land on, there is something special about the natural parent-child relationship, and that needs to overtake. And that needs to actually be the lens through which we filter all other family law. And right now, the filter that we're in the realm of parentage is adult identity, adult desire, non-discrimination in the name of LGBT rights are the filter through which we look at who is and is not a parent. That's the wrong filter. It's an anti-child filter, and it has to be tossed out.
So, Katy, do you find that, yes, Obergefell played into this, but do you think everything that was a part of the sexual revolution also played into this?
Oh, of course. Of course. I mean, there's cultural, legal, and technological forerunners that go ahead of Obergefell that make it possible. But Obergefell did something very, very different in law that no-fault divorce did not, and that the pill did not. It actually said it is discriminatory to elevate the natural parent-child relationship. And so now everything is reinterpreted through the lens of adult equality, even if it means that children are commodities.
Katy, thank you so much. You are always so clear. I love having you on the show. Thanks for being with us. Have a good week ahead.
Great to join you.